Okay guys, we're going to solve some quadratics. We've practiced simplifying radicals, things like that. So this video, it focuses on using the quadratic formula. Now, we're going to talk about different ways to solve these, but the quadratic formula can be used to solve any quadratic equation. But it is not always the best method. End of story. Some people try to use it for everything. It actually makes your work harder sometimes. But it is a skill I want you to practice. So this video is all about quadratic formula. There could be different ways that you might remember from Algebra 1, but we're not going to talk about those until the next couple videos. And then we put the whole big package together. So here you go. In case you forgot, here is the quadratic formula. And we have to remember, when you use the quadratic formula, the equation must be set equal to 0 to begin. So let's go through some examples together, and I'll point out things you should look for. Here we go. Here's our first one. Okay, now here's the thing. It must be set equal to 0 to begin. So I set them all equal to 0 to save some time. You can see my next example right there, set equal to 0. So let's start on the first one here. Remember, we have an A value, a B value, and a C value. So I'm just going to isolate those every time. I'm going to say here, A is 1, B is -3, C is also +1 in this problem. And if I want to use a quadratic formula, I would do -b. Now, personally, I never write that part down because if it's a double negative, I know it's going to be a plus. So I'm not going to do that again. I'll say it, but I won't do it. So I'd say -b. So a double negative. So let's get rid of that. -b plus or minus. Now, square root of b squared. Now, take caution here. B squared. If you use a calculator right there, it's going to tell you the answer is -9, and we know it's not. It's wrong. So when you do B squared, be careful with your calculator, because a -3 times itself is +9. Anyway, I'm just illustrating that with parentheses right here. So -3, or -b, plus or minus, b squared, minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. So in this case, 2. So what I'm trying to get at is this guy inside here, if you write it exactly how I wrote it there, with parentheses, etc., and you punch it into your calculator exactly how it's written, your calculator will tell you the correct answer. But if you forget the parentheses or anything like that, it will lie to you. But this number inside here, if you did it already, you should get 5. So what's my answer? It looks like it's 3 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. And if you look at that, you can't simplify 5, and you cannot reduce because there's nothing to reduce here. That would be your final answer in what we call simplest radical form. So on the unit test, I'll ask for simplest radical form. I will. I won't ask for decimal form. In fact, if you give me decimals, that's not good. I'm going to always ask for simplest radical form. There's our answer. Okay, let's move on. This next one, it says x squared minus 4x plus 6. So once again, they didn't write in the a value for me. They didn't. So it must be a 1. And that's very common. So I'd say, okay, a equals 1, b equals -4, c equals 6. And I'm going to say -b, so a double negative. -4. So that's just 4. -b. Plus or minus square root of. Now, I could just say it's 16, because I can do that in my head. I can say -4 squared is 16. But if you want to write it out with your calculator and use it, just make sure you put it in parentheses or it's not going to get it right. So that's b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. All right, so if I punch this stuff inside here, if I take that and punch it in my calculator exactly how it is written, it will do the order of operations correctly. But don't enter the root. Never enter that root. You're the one who's going to simplify the root. So if I did negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 6, I should be able to come up with the correct answer, which would be, in this case, 16. Take away 24, so I get a negative 8 inside there. 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 over 2. Now guess what? Up until Algebra 2, we tell you to stop working because you can't take the square root of a negative. But you guys know better now. This means I'm going to poke out my eyes, so I have an eye popping out. And then I look at this guy and I say, hey, I could simplify 8. I could say my list of perfect squares. I could say 4 times 2. That means I can take a 2 out. So let's rewrite this. There's too much action going on here. And I'm going to say it's 4 plus or minus 2i rad 2 over 2. Now remember, don't jump the gun on me. Don't be, oh, I'm going to knock those two guys out. No, no, no. You don't get to reduce until you see 1, 2, 3 outside numbers. Now I see 3 outside numbers, and I'm asking you, can I reduce it? And hopefully you are saying yes, because 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into that once, 2 goes into that twice. So if I regroup all of that information, I'll have 2 plus or minus 1i, or just I, rad 2 over 1. But remember, we don't have to write it over 1. If it's over 1, same thing as saying, boom, that's my answer. All right. So what we're trying to work through here is we're taking all the skills we practiced earlier in the week, and we're trying to incorporate that into solving things correctly with a quadratic formula. And yes, we can get complex answers that have i's in them. All right, let's keep practicing because I want to show you a variety. All right. You know what? I'm going to switch this one. Nah, I'm going to leave it alone. What the heck? I was going to say, because I already did a couple with negatives here. But you know what? It's good practice. When it's positive, most people don't make a mistake. So let's stick with it. A equals 2. See, this time they gave me an A value. B equals negative 5. C equals negative 3. So let's do it. Quadratic formula style. I would do negative b, so that's a double negative, plus or minus square root of b squared. So I'm going to say it once again. Don't let your calculator lie to you. You better put it in parentheses if you're going to square a negative. Minus 4a c. So let's see what we end up with. Oh, all over 2a, but this time a is 2, so 2a would be 2 times 2. On this one, I could punch it into my calculator as long as I wrote it all the way out. I'm going to get 25, take away 24, or sorry, 25 plus, let's make sure, 24. Yes, that's what I would get. So inside here, I'm going to get 49. So here is something I got to warn you about. Quadratic formula, 5 plus or minus rad 49 over 4 is an impolite mathematical answer. It's impolite. We don't leave our answer like that. Why? Well, oh, didn't want to do that. Hold on. Orange, there you go. This guy right here. What is the square root of 49? Be polite. Square root of 49 is 7, so I could rewrite this as 5 plus or minus 7 over 4. And then you're going to check your answer on the answer key because you're going to get some practice problems. And you look at the answer, and the answer does not say that at all. It doesn't. It says this. It says negative 1/2 and 3. And you look at that and say, why? Why is that the answer? Because I'm not going to be impolite to you. Please never leave your answer like, whoop, I didn't mean to do it with that. Please never leave your answer like this. This is super impolite in math circles. What does it mean? It means if I did 5 plus 7 and then divided that answer by 4, well, that would be 12 divided by 4. Oh, there's the 3. And what if they did 5 minus 7 divided by 4? Well, 5 minus 7 is negative 2 over 4. Hey, that's reducible. I could call it negative 1/2. This is the answer I want to see. And this is why it will say on the practice sheet, show your work. Please show your work. That's how I'm able to give you guys partial credit sometimes if you mess up. If I can figure out, hey, you only made one tiny mistake and brought it all the way through the problem, I'm not going to ding you for the whole point total. I'll just take 1 point. So showing work is always in your best interest. Let's continue, though, because I have some tricks up my sleeve. This is not one of them, though. This is where you guys should pause this video and try to do this problem. And then start it back up and follow along with me and see if you got the right answer. So pause it and do it. And then I assume you're going to pause it right now. You didn't pause it right now. Are you kidding me? Pause it. Okay. I assume you just hit play, so you're going to go through this with me. Or you didn't, and I will never know. But I'm just trying to help you practice. That's all I'm trying to do. There's my ABC. I'm going to do negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So that's a 4. So what do I get on this one? God, I don't even want to think that hard. I think it's negative 47, but let's see. Negative 1 squared is 1, it is, minus 4 times a times c. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't guess. What the heck? Yeah, it's negative 63. Okay, sometimes I get ahead of myself. That's negative 63. Well, what the heck? I see some I is about to pop out of that thing. See, 1 plus or minus square root negative 63 over 4 is not simplified. I can poke out my eyes. I can also say, hey, 63, you look like you're 9 times 6. And I could pull out a 3. So let's regroup all the goop. 1 plus or minus. There's a 3 outside, there's an I outside, there's a rad 6 inside over a 4. And that's the answer I'm hoping you found if you had taken my advice and paused the video. Now, hopefully everything you're like going, woo, straightforward, totally cool, got it. So let's just try one more here because I know that we haven't talked about complex numbers since the very first, part of the week. So I gave you a couple that I know are going to end up with complex numbers. Let's try it again. I know A is 1. I know B is 1. I know C is 6. Let's give it a whirl. If you want to try it on your own, pause it here. Okay, here we go. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a And once again, if you were to punch this in exactly how you wrote it, your calculator will not be lying to you when it tells you this answer is negative 23. So, what does that mean? I have negative 1 plus or minus square root of negative 23 over 2. Now, I see a negative. That always means poke out your eyes. Never leave an eye in there. But 23, I can't do anything about. 23 is a prime number. There's no perfect square. So what's my answer going to look like? It's going to look ugly. This is not a pretty number. But it is the correct number. That's what I'm shooting for. Alrighty, this video, we're just practicing in this one. But you're going to see sometimes they do this to you. And look, I put a little mark next to this one. Why? Because if I was going to do this problem, I would not use quadratic formula. I wouldn't. But some of you guys, you go, you know what? I like using quadratic formula. I'm going to keep doing it. Okay, fine. But I'm going to show you in the next video a shortcut for this. You might already know the shortcut, remember it from Algebra 1, but there's one thing they didn't show you in Algebra 1. For this particular problem, if you do it right, you're going to get that answer. And we did not show you anything with I numbers in it in Algebra 1. So how did I get there? Well, this guy is what we call an incomplete equation because there's no x to the first. Notice, that's why I told you this is different. There's no x to the first, which means I have an a, but my b is 0. My c is 6. Well, what does that do for me in the quadratic formula? Well, it does this. Negative b, well, negative nothing, plus or minus square root of nothing squared, doesn't matter, minus 4 times a times c, in this case, all over 2a. So we're going to get this. We're going to get on the inside here. We could punch that in on a calculator. Sure we could. And we're going to get the answer, negative 48. But don't forget, we're taking the square root of negative 48. And then you go, oh my gosh, well 48, that's what? 4 times 20 something? No. Go for the biggest perfect square. The biggest perfect square that lives inside of that thing is 16. 16 times 3 is 48. And that means I can pull out a 4 because the square root of 16 is 4. But don't forget, you got to poke out your eye. So what do I get? Well, I got a 4, I got an I got a rad 3. On the bottom, I got a 4. And I forgot to write plus or minus in front of this, but I'll do that in a second. Hey, guess what? Let's reduce it. There's a 4 in the top, there's a 4 in the bottom. I can reduce it. So I say, oh, my answer is plus or minus. What is that? That's what it is. I read 3. Cha-ching. But you know what? Before I even went through all that quadratic stuff, I showed you real quick. I did that in my head. You can too if you take the shortcut. But some people, I keep telling them every year, I want to use quadratic formula for everything. Okay, but you're going to work harder. I'm going to be done. You're going to be working. See this one, though? This one, there's a shortcut way, too, because it has the same type of vibe. That's why I put a little mark there. I did. I put a little mark there. And I am going to tell you right now, this one's a little harder for me to do in my head. It totally is. But I think that's the answer. That's what I think the answer is. Plus or minus rad 15 over 3. But I can do this with the quadratic formula. I could. And that's all I'm practicing in this video. Because I want people to know that they can use quadratic formula for everything, but it does not always mean it's the easiest thing to do. But it is set equal to 0, so here we go. Let's rock and roll. I got negative nothing plus or minus square root of nothing squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A, right? 2 times A is 6. So let's see, there's nothing here. There's plus or minus. And then on the inside, what do we have inside there? Well, it looks like negative 4 times 3 times negative 5. Hey, that's negative, or no, that's positive 60. That's 60. And then I say to myself, 60, that's a weird number. But guess what? It's got a perfect square in it. 4 times 15. Now, I'm doing that a little quick. You might have to look through a chart. But then again, I'm not going to give you a ton of problems to practice, just enough so that you're comfortable with it. So I'm going to have plus or minus. No, I almost wrote 4. This will produce a 2 on the outside. This will stay inside, and that's a 6. And then I go, hey, heck, boom, I got these two guys I can reduce. Plus or minus rad 15 over 3. Chaw, that's what I thought it was. Okay, quadratic formula can be used for any of this stuff, but it does not mean it's the easiest way to go. Now, I got another one here that looks similar but not the same, but I also put a little mark next to it. I can use quadratic formula to do this one. But what makes it look a little different? Well, it's got an A of 1. It does. They didn't write it in, but I could put a 1 there. It's got a B value of negative 4. I don't see. Huh, I know, hilarious. So I put a 0 there. I could use quadratic formula, negative B, so that's double negative, plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C. But see, ooh, that part's all going to drop out because that guy's a 0. You can prove it to yourself. Punch that in on the calculator just how you see it, right there. And this part is going to go away. I'm going to get left with 16 under there. But wait, there's more. I forgot to put it over 2A. So let's see what happens. Right here in the yellow, when I punch it in, I get 4 plus or minus 16 over 2. And then I say, wait a minute, square root of 16, hey, this is when I don't want to be impolite. Square root of 16 is just 4. So I can write this 4 plus or minus 4 over 2. 4 plus 4 is 8 over 2. Wait, that's just 4. 4 minus 4 is 0 over 2. Oh, that's just 0. See, I can get my answers. I can get my answers from the quadratic formula. I can, but you know what? There is a faster way to do that kind. Now, I put a little mark by the ones that are faster to do a different way. You're going to see those in a different video. But I am just showing you, you can use the quadratic formula for everything as long as it's set equal to 0 to begin with. And guess what? I set them all equal to 0 to begin with. So here's my challenge real quick here. See this? Check this out. See this one? This one? There's a quicker way to do it. The answer is 0, and the other answer is negative 3. The answer for this equation, if I solved it, whoop, I didn't mean to use that. The answer would be 0 and negative 3. Those are my two answers to that equation. Now, here's my challenge to you. Could you do it that fast using the quadratic formula? I don't think so. See, I know there's a faster way to do this. But if you work it out, you'll see that that's what you would get. Now, I'm going to just cut to the chase here. There's no more practice in this video. There isn't. Or is there? Nah, we're not going to do it. We've already done it. So, let's go up to the top to remind you of something. This video focuses on using quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. That's it, okay? And yes, the quadratic formula can be used to solve any equation, but it is not always the best method. Keep that in mind because the next video, I'm going to show you one of the shortcuts. Not both of them. I'm going to show you one of the shortcuts, and then I'm going to give you some practice problems. So just remember, when we use quadratic formula, you must be set equal to 0 to use it. All right, guys, we'll pick it up on the next video, part B.